I've had a few unsettling encounters in my life. Whether that makes me unlucky, overly imaginative, or just a magnet for weirdness, I don't know. But there's one night from my childhood that still crawls under my skin, like it happened yesterday. Back in the mid-'80s, when I was just a kid, maybe 8 years old, my family drove out to visit my mom's cousin in a deeply wooded area of northern Arkansas. They lived way out, far from town, surrounded by hills, trees, and a long gravel road that stretched between only a handful of homes. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and most of them were family. Because of that, people rarely locked their doors. Folks came and went as they pleased, dropping off pies, asking for tools, or just stopping by to chat. That night, my parents and the other adults decided to head into town to grab dinner and go bowling. They left us kids behind. Me, my 2 older brothers who were 11 and 13, and 3 of our cousins, 2 girls, one 6, one 15, and the oldest, a teenage boy who'd gone off hunting with some friends. That left us alone in the house. The evening started calm. The sky dimmed behind thick clouds, and the sound of rain tapping the roof soon became a steady downpour. We weren't scared. This was our favorite kind of night for a game we played, our version of hide and seek, but in the pitch-black house. We called it Gravekeeper. Here's how it worked. One person lay on an old mattress in the living room and pulled it over themselves like a coffin. They'd count down to midnight, then rise like the dead and hunt the rest of us. The goal was to get back to the mattress, the grave, without getting caught. With no lights on, and barely any windows in some parts of the house, it was genuinely dark. The kind of dark where you couldn't see your own fingers if you held them in front of your face. That night, my brother Jake was the gravekeeper. He lay hidden under the mattress, slowly counting down from 20. I crouched behind a worn-out recliner just a few feet away, barely breathing. The rain picked up, hammering the metal roof and drowning out Jake's voice. But then there was a flash. Lightning lit up the room for a split second, and I saw him, a man, face pressed against the glass of the front window, cupping his hands to block the glare as he peered inside. His face was twisted and grimy, heavy-set with a tangled beard. He looked like every warning your parents give you as a child bundled into one person. I blinked, hoping I imagined it. But before I could even move, Jake's voice sliced through the silence in a tense whisper. "If you're hiding in the living room, don't move." My throat was dry, but I managed to croak out, "I'm here." Another bolt of lightning flashed. The man hadn't moved, but now he wasn't peering into the window. He had turned, facing the front door. Jake didn't waste a second. He leapt over the couch and slammed the deadbolt shut, just as the door handle rattled violently. I don't know how he moved so fast, but the second he did, he started flipping on every light in the house. The porch light, the hallway light, the kitchen light. He wanted the guy to know we weren't alone. We were awake. We saw him. I stood frozen, heart hammering in my ears, relying entirely on Jake to tell me what to do. He looked at me and said, "Go lock the side doors, now." I ran, barely thinking, through the house, sliding to a stop at the mudroom door, locked it, then darted through the kitchen to the back of the house. There was a large sliding glass door that led to the backyard. Just as I reached for the lock, I felt it, that awful weightless chill you get when someone's watching you. He was there, standing just beyond the glass, maybe 6 feet from me, his face blank and unmoving. I couldn't tell if he saw me or not, but he was looking directly in. I froze. My hand hovered over the lock. Then Jake's voice, low and calm, cut through the tension. Close the curtain. Do it now. Just close it." My hands trembled as I slid the curtain shut. The room went black again. We tried to call the police, but the phone line was dead. My aunt and uncle had one of those old shared lines, you know, a party line, where the whole stretch of houses shared the same connection. Whether the storm knocked it out or someone left theirs off the hook, we couldn't get a dial tone. Jake handed my oldest brother, Matt, the CB radio, and told him to try and reach someone, anyone. Meanwhile, he grabbed the only thing that resembled a weapon in the house, an old BB rifle from my uncle's collection. It looked real, but it wouldn't have done much if that man had made it inside. We gathered in the living room, watching the front door, barely speaking. Every creak of the floor, every gust of wind, every flicker of lightning outside made us flinch. Then about half an hour later, Jake whispered, "He's back." We looked out the front window, and sure enough, there he was. Walking slowly up the driveway, the same heavy steps, the same expressionless face. Jake threw open the front door and stepped out onto the porch, the BB rifle aimed straight at the man. "Get out of here," he yelled. "I'm not joking. Go." And then we heard a familiar voice from the shadows. "Dude, you know that's a BB gun, right?" It was our cousin, Travis, 15 years old and built like a linebacker. He had been out walking back from a friend's place and saw someone in the driveway. When he realized we were outside with a rifle, he came to check it out. At first, he thought we were messing with him. But when we explained everything, when he saw our faces, he stopped smiling. He believed us. We stood watch together until our parents got home. I don't even remember if we told them everything. No cops were called, no searches. It was just over. The man never came back. But even now, decades later, I still remember that feeling. Looking into those dark eyes through the rain-soaked glass, wondering what would have happened if Jake hadn't locked that door in time. We never played Gravekeeper again. Not once. Every time we talked about that night after, someone would bring it up with a nervous laugh. But deep down, we all knew. That wasn't a game anymore. It was real. And he was real. The Stranger by the River. There's a hidden forest road deep in the Pacific Range, a place most folks pass by without noticing. No signs, no markers, just a narrow path slicing through dense evergreens, leading to a quiet bend in a river. It's not an official campsite, but I used to call it my escape. Back then, I was in my early 20s and clinging to solitude like it was the only thing that kept me grounded. My beat-up sedan, sputtering and faded, knew that road well. Every few weeks I'd throw a sleeping bag in the trunk, grab my journal, some instant meals, and disappear for a while. Out there I could let the silence peel away all the noise in my head. But this story, this one night, it changed how I see those woods forever. It was late spring, just warm enough to sleep outside without freezing, and I had a few days off work. I was still reeling from a brutal conversation, closure, if you can call it that, with someone who had torn my heart up months prior. I needed space to breathe, so I headed back to that bend in the river, 3 hours deep into nowhere. As I pulled up the gravel road, I noticed 2 vehicles already parked near the river's edge, a teal pickup and a dusty silver hatchback. Disappointed, I parked farther down, not wanting company. The whole point was to be alone. 2 guys were near the truck, tossing pebbles into the water. As I walked by with my gear, one of them gave a friendly nod. I gave a half-hearted smile and kept going. I found a clear patch near the tree line, close enough to hear the river, far enough to feel like I had privacy. Just as I returned to my car for the last of my supplies, I caught the shorter guy moving fast. He darted over to a boulder where a pair of pistols lay, scooping them up and stashing them like he got caught doing something wrong. "Oh, sorry about that," he said, smiling nervously. "Didn't mean to freak you out." I paused, wary, but gave a flat, "It's fine," and walked on. I didn't care to ask if they were real or not. I just wanted to eat, rest, and let the river do its healing thing. Later, as I stirred a lukewarm can of chili over the fire, the golden light of the setting sun lit the trees like something out of a dream. I could see the two guys wading upstream, splashing around and laughing like kids. For a while it felt okay, normal even, until he called out to me, "I just wanted you to know I'm a good guy, okay?" The same short guy from earlier, now standing on the opposite bank, voice cutting through the calm. It should have raised alarms. I remember thinking it was weird, but I shrugged it off. Maybe he was just awkward. That's how it starts, isn't it? You downplay the weirdness. You give people the benefit of the doubt when you shouldn't. It got dark. I was poking at the fire, half lost in thought, when I heard footsteps approaching. It was him again, alone this time, limping slightly like he was injured. "Hey," he said, sitting down on a nearby log like I'd invited him. "River's colder than I thought. Messed up my old injury." I nodded, hoping he'd take the hint, but he didn't. He kept talking, rambling actually. Wild stories about falling off scaffolding while welding, impaling his hand on metal rods, pulling himself up like some kind of action movie hero. I gave polite uh-huhs and wows, but my skin prickled. He said he was homeless now, that his girlfriend left him for another man, that he was living out of his truck, that he used to be a DJ and a chef and a Navy SEAL. All of it felt like a fog of lies he believed a little too deeply. Then, almost like an afterthought, he said, "Those pistols? Just air guns. Thought they'd scare you. Didn't mean to." He twirled one around his fingers like he'd practiced in front of a mirror and even offered it to me. "You should have it," he said, "in case I think about doing something stupid." I didn't want it, but I took it. Every instinct was telling me to make him leave, but I froze. I kept listening as he unloaded years of trauma and resentment, painting his past in broad, uncomfortable strokes. His dad was abusive, his cousin too. And then he leaned in close, too close. "That's why I'd never hurt you," he said, staring me down, eyes dry and unblinking. "Not someone like you." I gripped the arm of my chair. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Not long after, a truck pulled up. A woman climbed out. His ex, I guessed. They talked briefly. She looked at me with something sharp in her expression, then sped off. He didn't even seem to care. Just watched her go, then turned back to me like I was the center of some story he'd made up in his head. I stood and said I was turning in. He nodded but didn't leave. I zipped myself into my tent and lay there in the dark, heart pounding. Then I noticed the ring, a cheap little thing, sitting right on my pillow. He must have left it there when I was away from camp. Maybe when I went to the river. I still don't know. But I do know this. He was outside. I could hear him, pacing, muttering, talking to himself in the dark, like he was arguing with someone invisible. I didn't wait. I started packing, quick, quiet, but shaky. He caught me halfway through and asked where I was going. "I just decided to leave," I said. "Changed my mind." He stood in the path on my way to the car, shielding his eyes. "Your flashlight's blinding me." He muttered. I stepped around him. The last trip to grab my gear, he emerged from the shadows, crying now. I didn't do anything wrong, he whimpered. I didn't respond. I left the firewood, left the half-cooked meal, left everything that wasn't necessary. I just wanted to be gone. The engine roared to life, and it was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. I didn't stop driving until my cell had service again, maybe halfway back to town. I called my mom, then my dad, told them everything. They were furious that I hadn't told anyone where I was going. My dad said I should get a gun. And maybe he's right. The next day, I noticed my tire was flat. Had it happened in the woods, with no signal? I don't even want to think about it. I live in the city now. Haven't been back to that river bend. Haven't heard from him either. But I kept that air pistol. My best friend found it while helping me move and thought it was real. I just laughed and said, "It's a long story." And trust me, it is. Would you have trusted your gut and left sooner? Or would you have stayed like I did, trying not to make things worse? Let me know in the comments. And if you've ever had a solo camping experience go sideways, I'm all ears. A few months ago, my friends and I set out for a late morning hike along one of our favorite trails. It winds through the misty ridges of northern Appalachia, real quiet country, where the towns are few, the roads are long, and cell service is a myth. We'd done this particular loop a dozen times before. An 8-mile stretch through dense woods, gentle slopes, and a couple of scenic overlooks. It wasn't supposed to be anything special, just a few hours outside to clear our heads. We were about 6 miles in when we reached a small clearing that opened to a ledge overlooking the valley. There were a couple of picnic tables, some weathered benches, and a cracked asphalt lot with room for maybe 6 or 7 cars. It was a popular rest stop for hikers, close enough to the halfway point to stop for water and food, or just to soak up the view. That's exactly what we were doing, snacking, laughing, and snapping pictures, when I noticed him. He was just there. A man, maybe in his mid-30s, wandering aimlessly around the parking area. No pack, no water, just dark jeans, worn leather shoes, and a long-sleeved shirt, like he'd stepped out of a casual Friday at the office and stumbled into the woods. At first, I figured he was someone's ride or maybe taking a break after getting lost. But something didn't sit right. He wasn't looking around like he was trying to find someone or something. He was staring straight down at his feet, pacing in lazy, looping circles like he didn't know where he was, or didn't care. I quietly pointed him out to my friend. We didn't say much about it, just exchanged a glance that said, "Let's keep moving." We packed up and headed down the final 2 miles of the trail. It was a downhill stretch that cut through the mountain on a narrow path, the kind where you walk single file with little room on either side. Tree roots jutted out like skeletal hands from the earth. The forest pressed close. It always felt darker here, even at noon. I was walking in front, chatting over my shoulder, when I turned to check on my friend, and nearly froze. He was there, the man from the parking lot, following right behind her. Less than 2 feet away. He wasn't saying anything, wasn't smiling. His eyes were locked straight ahead, dull and glassy, like he was watching a television only he could see, and still, no pack, no gear, no boots. Just those stiff leather shoes sinking into the mud. My stomach dropped. Something wasn't right, and I could tell from the way my friend tensed up that she felt it too. I stopped walking. "Hey, I need to tie my shoe," I said, loud enough for her to hear and catch on. We both stepped aside and let him pass, He hesitated like he hadn't expected it, then walked forward, slow and stiff, gripping something in his hand. A stick. At least it looked like a stick at first. Gnarled, about 1.5 feet long, and smoothed down on one side like he'd been working on it. My friend gave a polite, "Hey there," but he didn't respond. Just kept walking, eyes forward. No nod, no change in expression, nothing. We waited a minute or two before continuing. He had only moved about 20 feet ahead and was walking slow, slower than we had been. It was like he was waiting for us to follow again. I whispered, "We're not passing him. Let's go back up." We turned around, fast. As we climbed the trail in the opposite direction, my brain was racing. Was he lost? Was he just weird? Was this a misunderstanding? Or was it worse? A minute later, I turned around. He was behind us again, not jogging, not yelling for help, just walking, calm, steady, that same carved stick swinging in his hand. And the moment our eyes met, he stopped. That's when I knew we couldn't ignore it. We didn't talk. We just moved, fast. We practically power hiked back to the overlook. I remember how surreal it felt, like being chased in a dream, where nothing quite makes sense, but the fear is very real. The second we got back to the parking area, we looked around. There were other hikers scattered at the picnic tables, families, older couples, even a ranger truck parked near the trail map. We finally exhaled. We decided to wait, see if he came back out of the trees. If he walked into the open, maybe we could talk to a ranger, figure out if he needed help. But 20 minutes passed and nothing. He never emerged. We started wondering, did he continue on the loop behind us? Was he hiding on the trail, waiting? We couldn't shake the feeling that he hadn't left. That's when a couple came up the trail from the opposite direction. Middle-aged, friendly-looking, out for a casual hike. We stopped them and asked if they'd seen anyone unusual between the overlook and the main trailhead. The wife furrowed her brow. Yeah, there was a guy sitting on a rock about halfway down. Kind of odd. Didn't look like he was hiking. Did he have a stick? I asked. Her face changed. Yes, he was carving it. What? I blinked. With what? The husband cut in, voice sharp. With a knife, a big one. I told my wife we should turn around. Our hearts sank. We told them what had happened, how he followed us, how he had that dead-eyed stare, how close he had gotten. The man didn't hesitate. We're walking with you. You're not going down there alone. They stuck with us the whole way. 4 sets of eyes, one route, no stopping. We made it to the main lot where our car was parked. Still no sign of him. The couple gave us their numbers and insisted we call if anything happened. We did call someone, though. A park ranger who was already in the area. They said they'd searched the trail. Hours later, we got a call back. Nothing. No sign of the man. No trace of footprints, gear, or even the stick. It was like he'd vanished between the trees. I haven't been back since. But I still think about it. How he didn't speak. How he didn't blink. How he never once acted surprised to see us. And how that knife, if not for a stranger on the trail, might have become something more than just a carving tool. If you're listening to this and thinking, maybe he was just a strange guy, harmless, ask yourself this: why didn't he say anything? Why did he keep following? And why was he hiding in the one part of the trail where no one could hear you scream? If you're ever out in the woods and your gut tells you something's off, trust it. Because the scariest monsters aren't in ghost stories. They're the ones who wear human faces and walk just a little too close behind. What would you have done if you were in our shoes? Have you ever had someone follow you like that? Quiet, too close, too strange. Drop your stories in the comments. I'll be reading them all tonight, with the lights on.